Hi, good morning. It's Helen from the Cut Flower Patch, here today to sow the Larkspur seeds from our August seed kit. Now, in order for Larkspur to germinate, the seed needs to go through a process called stratification, which means it needs to be cold when you actually sow the seed. So you need to pop your Larkspur seeds in the freezer for a couple of weeks before sowing them. My seeds have been in the freezer actually for around 3 weeks now. I was going to sow them a week or so ago, but the weather was quite warm and Larkspur need lower temperatures to germinate, somewhere between 10 and 15 degrees centigrade. So I've left mine in the freezer for an extra week, and that won't matter at all. You can leave them in for another week if you wish, because it's actually warming up a bit again. So I'm hoping it is going to be cool enough to sow these now. You have got 200 seeds in your kit, so if your first attempt doesn't germinate, you can always have another go at sowing some more. There is a sort of a general consensus actually that Larkspur is quite a difficult seed to get to germinate. I probably had a couple of false starts last year, but then in the end I got absolutely, dozens and dozens of beautiful plants, and as a result of that, lots of lovely flowers to cut. I also press quite a few. They press very nicely and make nice botanical artwork. They hold their colour very well, so it's a really nice one to have a go at if you're thinking about pressing some flowers. Okay, so we'll get on to sowing the Larkspur. A slightly different process to some of the other seeds we sow, so I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so on to sowing our Larkspur seeds. Firstly, I filled a 24 cell seed tray with sieved multi-purpose compost. As always, you can use seed compost, but I find multi-purpose compost absolutely fine. I do always buy peat-free because it is a more environmentally sourced form of compost. And as I always say, do sieve it because you want to get out any bits of bark or any sort of lumps and bumps in there. I've also depressed the compost slightly, just to get rid of any air pockets that might be in there. We want seeds to make contact with the compost, so we don't want to get caught in any sort of air pockets. I'm sowing a full tray here of 24, mainly because they can be a little bit tricky to germinate. So in case they don't all germinate, I've got a little bit of room for error, as it were. But you have got 200 seeds in your pack, so you can always sow another batch if the first batch don't work out at all. Okay, so firstly, what I'm going to do is make just a small hole in each of the cells. I'm using my Cut Flower Patch dibber, which is free to all Cut Flower Patch subscribers. But if you don't have a dibber, you can use a pencil or pen, something like that. That's absolutely fine. So we just need a small hole in there. And then I'm going to pop just one seed in each cell. I won't do them all now, but I'll just do half the tray. So what we're going to do is just pop one in here. As I said before, Larkspur does need fairly cool temperatures, around 10 to 15 Celsius to germinate, and it does need to be dark as well, but I'll come on to that in a second. So once I've got one of those in each cell, actually I have pre-moistened my compost in this instance just because I find it easier to use the dibber with pre-moistened compost, but you can either moisten the compost beforehand or water it afterwards. The key is just to get it nice and moist but not too damp. Overwatering seeds is quite a common problem. So I'm just going to cover each of these over, and then I'm going to put these in a cardboard box actually, and then I'm going to leave them in a cupboard in the house, quite a dark cupboard. In the past I've left them in the shed to germinate, but it's still a little bit warm in the shed, so I'm going to pop them in a cupboard in the house. And then fairly regularly, probably every other day, I'm going to check whether there's any sign of germination. And what I will do for the first few seeds that germinate, I'll cover them over with a little bit of compost to keep them in the dark. But then when the majority of the seeds have germinated, I'll take them out of the box and put them in the greenhouse so they can then benefit from the light once they've started to, once they've had the first signs of germination. Oh, and also, of course, don't forget to put your label in. Easy to forget. So that's a larkspur. I hope you get on okay with those. The other thing I wanted to show you were the other seeds from the August seed kit and where I have got to with them. So they have germinated really, really quickly. So this is the cornflower, which was sown about 3 weeks ago. So what's happened with the cornflower? These are the original seed leaves, and then they started to get their, what we call their 2 true leaves. And it's at this point you need to prick them out and put them into a 9cm pot. If you haven't pricked out before, there is a video of how to prick out on the how-to section of the Cut Flower Patch website. So because these have germinated so quickly, I suspect many of you will need to prick these out fairly soon as well. The same thing applies to the corn cockle. It's got its seed leaves, its first true leaves, and in fact now another set of leaves is coming through on that. The nigella as well, although a lot smaller, that's also got its true leaves, so I've pricked that out. And the same with the Iceland poppies. They are quite small and delicate, so you'll have to be quite careful when you prick those out. You might get a few casualties actually, but hopefully you've had plenty germinate, so you'll have a few to work with. And just one slight word of warning: the slugs do like cornflower, so that's what I got up and found in my greenhouse this morning. The slug has eaten the cornflower, but again, there's plenty of cornflower seeds in your kit. So if you do sadly lose them to the slugs, then have another go and just keep an eye on them. Okay, I think that's all for now. We're currently working on the September kit, so they will be all with you very shortly. Okay, until then.